going to call a public hearing to order. This public hearing is regarding proposed law 2 of 2025, local law to prohibit parking at 33 Thomas Street. So if there's anybody here that would like to be heard, Will, is that something you would be?
Yeah. That's
I'm sorry. Will, you own 33?
Yeah, that's my house. I talked to Phil about it. It sounds like, well, can you guys say more about the reasons for it, or is that not?
Well, no, I think part of the reason Phil brought it to our attention is trucks making a swing.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard if there's cars parked there, snow plows, fire trucks, that type of thing. So he made a suggestion that we limit that parking, I think, just in front of the property.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just curious how far down down that sidewalk it would be. I'm all for it, and I know it's hard to make that turn. I've driven the fire trucks. But it's nice to have parking out front there. So.
Joe, do you have anything to add to that? I think it's just in front of 33. It's not going to extend any further.
But my property line goes all the way to the property line of 31 Thomas Street, which would be like that whole area in front of that field there.
Yeah, I think we can manage that with just probably 2 spots.
2 spots, so that's like 30 feet or something.
Yeah, I'll talk to Phil about that. And again, as you know, the tractor trailers and/or snow plows make that turn.
Right.
It may even be 1 spot. But
yeah.
I think what generally happens if it's approved is there'll be signage there, no parking from here to wherever.
Yeah.
And we'll stripe it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I get it, but I want to keep as much of that parking as possible.
Sure, that's a good point. Anybody else regarding the public hearing? We'll give it a couple of minutes yet. Will, where you been? You've been away.
Road trip.
Road trip. Vacation.
I don't know
road
if I want to say my itinerary into the record.
Good point. And I don't want to push it. Just
Well, that makes me wonder.
good point. Folks, you can come on in. We're doing a public hearing. We're done here in a few minutes regarding some parking. If you want to comment on it.
Can I ask how so that was a draft law that went out, right?
I'm sorry?
It was a draft law that I read?
Yes.
So what's the process like as it goes forward? Like, is there, because I noticed in there it says from X to X, it wasn't exactly.
Yeah, I think we'll have to define that.
That gets defined and then sent back out?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get that to you.
We never described it exactly how far from this morning. John?
Yes.
The local, just point out that the local law had a placeholder in front of 33 Thomas Street from blank to blank.
Okay.
Which we never actually did. We needed to decide whether it's in the corner that is 60 feet down or 50 feet. So it's currently blank. So.
All right, I think what we'll do is we'll table it. We'll table it and we'll get a defined area.
Sounds good.
So
We can keep discussing.
yeah, no, that's a good point. And I'm glad you brought that up. So what we'll do is we're going to table it. I'll close the public, or actually I'll leave the public hearing open so that we can come back.
You don't need to, you can close the public hearing.
Okay. All right, we'll close the public hearing at this time. And then again, we'll follow. Okay? You good with that?
tonight.
All right, I'm going to call a regular meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for all being here tonight. I'm going to dispense with our normal agenda. There's no such thing. The agenda as it's laid out here is I'm pretty certain we have a number of people regarding a letter of concern from regarding the Little League, and that's towards the end of our agenda, and I quite frankly don't want anybody to have to listen to a lot of what we have to talk about. You're welcome to stay all night. But I'm going to read a letter that I received, and then I'll open it up for discussion. And I just want everybody to know that everything will be, you've addressed the board. I don't want to get into a he said, she said, tit for tat. We're all going to be friends and family, and we'll get through this. Dear Mayor Howe, members of the Board of Trustees, we are writing to ask you guidance in addressing some concerns we have regarding the Greenberger Memorial Little League Fields on Payne Avenue in the Village. First, please be assured that we value this community resource and enthusiastically support its continued use as a recreation facility for the young people in our village and the surrounding area. At the same time, there are ongoing challenges we would like to bring to your attention. Amplified sound. This includes ongoing announcements throughout games as well as music amplifications during practice and warm-ups. This is audible up and down the avenue as far as the fairgrounds, and depending on the event, it can last for hours. Traffic. Drivers continually ignore the no left turn sign from Payne Avenue and no right turn sign from the field exit. This generates increased traffic on Payne Avenue. Oftentimes drivers are driving hastily. Usage. The fields are being used by groups far beyond their initial design, including Chatham High School events and adult leagues. These uses bring more attendance, traffic noise than is reasonable for a small neighborhood facility. Off-season security. When not used for baseball, the fields have become a spot for questionable activity. On any given day, you will find litter, people sleeping in vehicles, donut tracks in the winter, and so on. Given a residential area within the park, within which the park is established, there are some parameters that were mutually agreed upon pertaining to its use. These include limiting play to Chatham Little League and ensuring a safe and secure environment for users and neighbors with a reasonable measure around sound and so on. We hope for a resolution of these concerns and look forward to your response. And there's a number of signatures attached to this. Let me just finish here. Some suggestions. The noise can be heard at Camp Hill as well. Concerns for small children on the street traffic. May 14th, high school music started at 4-ish, followed by loud announcements of each batter with more music in between, lasting until 7:30. Parking lot overflowing the grassy field and up to the hilltop. Another one, maybe a no access to baseball complex sign to be put at Chatham Payne end so that people know prior to getting to the field. Contact Apple, Google Maps so that people aren't wrote it down and having to get to the fields. And why is the high school something to play on the field, allowed to play on the field? That's the petition as it was written. From that, I spent some time to do some research because we talk about agreements, mutually agreed upon agreements. Just bear with me here because I had a mixture of things. Back in 1992, April 30th, 1992, a special joint meeting between the Chatham ZBA and the Ghent Planning Board. Apparently there was a special use permit that was applied for. Proposed use in connection with the development of a non-profit private recreation Little League baseball facility containing 4 playing fields, as shown on an attached copy of the site plan. I don't have that in front of me. All the recreation facilities would be situated entirely in the town of Ghent, and only a portion, approximately half, of the parking facility, together with the entranceway off of Payne Avenue, will be situated in the Village of Chatham. The use is a permitted use in the suburban residential zone district. The next thing, A, such use will be in harmony with, promote general purpose and intent of this ordinance, as stated in section 1. By legally dictating the property as a perpetual community recreation facility requiring no municipal services, on-site sewage, water service will be provided, thereby ensuring the open use of the property and prevent its development for intensive retail residential and commercial properties. Again, there were site plans, and let me finish here. They requested a curb cut off of Payne Avenue, part of this application. So then it goes on, at some point they applied in '92 for building sign permit, which was for in front of it. Out of that, and I don't know how this happens, I wasn't here in 1992, with the fact that this was primarily in the town of Ghent, it was decided upon that the Village of Chatham ZBA would be the lead agency. I don't know why, because there's only a driveway. So, quite frankly, I don't know how that happened. There was public hearings, I have minutes to those, but I'll get to the meat of it. This is a letter from August 24th, 1992. Is that 25 years ago? 35 years ago? Reference a special use permit. Alexander Jerome Willows, Greenberger Memorial Field. Dear Mr. Winkler, this is from the Village ZBA to John Winkler, the chairperson of the planning board. On August 20th, 1992, the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Chatham granted conditional approval to the above referenced application. This letter constitutes our final decision, which is I am filing today with the village clerk. The following conditions were placed on the permit. And so I think this is where we're going with this conditions. The Village of Chatham will be named co-insured on the liability insurance policy for the facility, the limits of which policy will be determined by the Lilly standard. 2, the berm along Payne Avenue, which is indicated on the site plan as 18 inches, will be increased to 30 inches. Again, I believe that was done. 3, the parking lot exit will be relocated to begin at the northern end of the parking lot and extend towards the curb, with the curb location remaining the same as indicated on the site plan. Again, I believe that was done. 4, the following road signs will be placed at applicant's expense. A stop sign at the exit of the premise as indicated on the site plan. I think there's one there. B, a no right turn sign at the exit of the premise as indicated on the site plan. I think there's one there. C, a stop sign on Payne Avenue at the intersection of the exits of the premises as indicated on the site plan. And again, I believe that's there. D, a no left turn sign on Payne Avenue at the intersection of the exit of the premises, the placement which shall be approved by the Village of Chatham Police Department. I have to assume it was because it was there. Is there. E, a no access to Little League Field from direction sign or other appropriate wording to be discussed with and approved by the Village of Chatham Police Department at the intersection of Route 203 and Payne Avenue, with the understanding that this is contingent upon any appropriate New York State Department of Transportation approval necessary. That wasn't done. I won't say it wasn't done. There's not a sign. It may have been because state transportation approval. F, a no access to Little League Field from this direction sign or other appropriate wording to be discussed with approved by the Village of Chatham Police Department at the intersection of Route 66 and Elm Street, with the understanding that this is contingent upon any appropriate New York State Department of Transportation approval necessary. Again, that wasn't done. A sign, and I say it wasn't done because of the possibility it wasn't approved. 5, a sign listing rules of conduct for use of the facility to be posted at the parking lot. 6, screening is to be provided as indicated on the site plan with addition of a minimum of 2 staggered rows of evergreen trees along the southern boundary of the March property line. Although not a condition, applicant has agreed to allow Charles March to be notified of and be present at the planning of the same for the purpose of his input to the replacement. Any damaged or otherwise lost screening will be promptly replaced. I believe that was done. 7, any site plan revisions which will in any way affect surface water drainage are to be submitted to the Village of Chatham for approval prior to any physical altercations of the premises. 8, the applicant will convey over to the Village of Chatham an appropriate amount of land opposite land now owned by the Village of Chatham on the west side of Payne Avenue so that the village may close Payne Avenue to through traffic by construction of a cul-de-sac if at any time requested by the Village of Chatham. I'll refer to that in a minute. 9, the applicant will convey to the Village of Chatham land for the purpose of relocation of the roadbed of the southern section of Payne Avenue as indicated on the site plan if at any time requested by the Village of Chatham. 10, any site plan revisions necessary to meet any of the above-mentioned conditions will be submitted to the Village of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals for final approval prior to construction of that particular aspect of the project. Although not a condition, co-chairperson Stephen Piazza expressed the request that the Little League put together an information sheet to be handed out at the time of sign-up or registration advising the public of the Village of Chatham's traffic and parking regulations as they related to the facility. Whether that was ever done, I don't know. I would suggest that that would be done and continue to be done. When the revised site plan has been completed by the applicant and approved, stamped by the Village of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals, will be then forwarded them to the board in order that they may place your stamp on it. Although this has been a lengthy process with a great deal of public input, I believe I speak for the entire Zoning Board of Appeals in stating we believe that this facility will be a great benefit to the children of our community and hope that it will be treated with respect by all who use it. We thank you for your input and cooperation throughout these proceedings and look forward to working with you again in the future and I look forward to time. Joanne Lohner was the chairperson. So that's from the inception. I went a little bit further and looked at the cul-de-sac, and in 1994, 2 years later, Nelson Sharon, who was a Board of Trustee member, introduced a resolution to create a cul-de-sac on Payne Avenue. It was defeated. Out of that, there was an additional resolution, and which was approved to look further into putting no-through traffic signs. I don't believe there was ever no-through traffic. This was a study to do these things. Stop signs at the intersection of Elm Street, and I believe they were put in there. There was a suggestion for speed bumps, and quite frankly, we're not putting speed bumps in for various other reasons, and because we've had questions about that. Stepped up enforcement from time to time. We've done it. We can continue to do that. And a weight limit. I'm not sure there's a weight limit on Payne. The weight limit's on there. Okay. So that was in 1994. So here we are today with some concerns, a number of concerns. But they were the stipulations. There wasn't a stipulation as I received another letter which was unsigned and was not addressed to the board. But there's some questions about, bear with me here. Basically, why is the high school playing there? Who allows this to happen? That's not a village function. That's a school and Little League function. There was another question regarding, I don't know why I don't have that in front of me. I apologize. Oh, here it is. The agreement regulations seem to have been thrown to the wayside. These regulations, as far as I can see, have all been adhered to as they were stated in 1992. The high school plays all their home games there. Who approved this additional field and request? That's not a village function. Why are they not at the high school field? That's a question for the school. There's men's baseball teams out of the area playing there in the summer months. Who approved this usage? I can't answer that question. We don't approve those. And the parameters of a wonderful gesture are being pushed with no concerns for the neighborhood. I don't think that's the case because I have met with, I know Lenore and I have had conversations a number of times. Lenore is graciously, and I try to go down there when I get a call. And I know one particular day you were absolutely right. It was completely out of control, the noise. And I spoke to the, actually had to be a varsity high school coach, but he's also the school's, what do I say, athletic director, and they toned it down that day. Whether it continued or not after, I know the first time I went down there it was quiet, and it got loud, and I went down there and seemed to tone down. Since then I've talked to the president of the Little League and expressed some of the concerns to him, and I think he's met with his board of directors, and we're looking at trying to do the right thing. Having said all that, would somebody like to address the board?
Can I just ask a couple questions? Do you monitor that recently? Often, like if people make left turn, do they get tickets? Like, what happens? How do people know that that's not something you should be doing?
So there is no left turn signs there. It's like any other traffic enforcement. We have enforced it before.
Okay.
I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, there was a turn at the time we put our sign down there to monitor the speed as well as the number of vehicles. And there was an increase in vehicles. Something we've done just recently by resolution is we've had an issue in Austin with traffic coming off the parkway, following the GPS. And we were able to, by resolution, and you can explain that better than I can, have the GPS.
Yeah, we fight with Apple and Google to get that changed, because they do send cars down that road, so.
So that's something we can look
go
at.
back at them again and try to get it updated.
So that's to the issue that, John, that you read about, that there's other teams besides Little League. I notice that more in the summer when it's travel, when it's not Little League, there's travel teams, and it's just car after car after car after car coming from sometimes another state to play, you know, tournaments. And as far as the people turning, they do it all the time. I mean, we know because we live on the street. I just watched car after car after car before we came in tonight. And they were going both directions, dropping kids off for practice, then going back down. Some go slow, some don't speed, some fly by.
All right, we'll take a look at it.
You even had, the curbing was extended to be another deterrent.
Yeah.
It's like non-compos mentis. You know, they
Yeah.
continue that.
And there is a stop sign at the end, but from the ball field out, if they're going the right way and go straight out towards Hudson Ave, they don't stop. I almost watched an accident tonight as a car was turning left into the field and the car flying down, slammed on their brakes because somebody was turning in front of them and they weren't stopping. And
Well, one of the suggestions, and I thought it was good in 1992, believe it or not, 35 years ago, was to put a packet out when they do their sign-ups and stuff. And I'll ask them to continue to do that with the new parents and stuff. You know, if you do it for a year or two and then you don't do it for 20 years, it gets lost. To possibly adhere a little bit more to the traffic and vehicle laws and a little bit more enforcement. I'm not big on dropping a hammer on people writing tickets, quite frankly. And I think the chief knows that. Education is the way to go.
I had an issue with the high schoolers last year and called Scott Stubbs directly. He handled it immediately.
Yeah.
He said if any one of those boys drives down Payne Avenue, I'm making them park at Price Chopper from now on.
Yeah.
And it was never a problem with the players again. So I completely appreciated his handling that.
And I thought the day that I met with him, he was very, I'm not going to tell you what he said, but he made it very clear to turn it down. And whether that continued, I can't sit, because I can't sit there all the time. But there was a very legitimate concern about the noise, and I expressed it. Dan happened to pull in the same day, and I said, "You're here for the same reason, aren't you?"
We had kind of similar conversations.
So Dan said, "Can I go up and speak to him?" I said, "Power numbers, brother. Go on up and have at it."
Yeah, and I think I would just add that our property borders the ball field, so when I sit on my porch, I'm, half a hayfield away from the amplified music, and for us, it's really the long-term constant noise of the amplifier. And every time we've gone over, the coaches have been understanding, and we've said, could you please just tone it down a bit? And so I think, I agree with you, I think the conversations and education, maybe even a small sign by whatever switches on the PA that says, you can play the national anthem, you can introduce your team, and then you gotta shut this thing off.
Yeah, this was a new addition. That's the new building, and it goes up so much higher and faces directly down Payne Avenue.
We actually get the echo off of the water.
All right, so again, I've talked to Kyle, and it's just in the last 30
John,
days.
can I address?
Bill, go ahead, Bill.
I'm Bill Hogenkamp. I'm the district administrator at all Little Leagues. I was president of Little League at Chatham for years. This is the first year they started doing that. The PTA asked to be able to do announcements and to sell some food up there at that concession stand for the PTA. We were fine with them doing that. We didn't know they were going to be blaring that. So that was addressed right away. As soon as we heard a complaint, we addressed it, and they're going to keep it down from this point forward. Obviously, there's no more games, so it's not really going to be an issue now. In terms of what we use at the Little League field, it's all about baseball. Whether it's a kid playing or a lot of these adults that play, we're coaches or we're kids that played. That they're all checked out. They're all playing baseball. And the adults that play up there, they play on the big field, it's a baseball field. We use it for baseball. We don't hold other parties there, we don't do anything extra, it is what it is. I agree, there is a no left-hand turn, that was part of the agreement when Little League was put up there, no left-hand turn. Is it a DOT approved sign? I don't know, and that's probably an issue that is something between DOT. We put it up just to prevent that, because we were abiding by the rules. So I don't know if it's enforceable because it's not a DOT sign. That's something that can be addressed with the board in terms of that. Anytime that you guys have a concern, you're more than welcome to come to the Chatham board. There's a bunch of people in the community, all volunteers that try to keep that facility. It's for the kids, deep down. It's making, these kids, right now we have high schoolers playing up there who just won 3 state championships. It all starts at Little League, and it's all about the kids. So that's what we're doing. And I understand the traffic and the noise. We're going to get rid of they'll do the announcement, to do the national anthem, and that'll be it. But on a Saturday, you don't hear, we do a national anthem on opening day, but up at the Roundhouse, but you don't hear that then, after that. We don't do announcements after that. It's just the high schoolers started doing that, and then we had to put a squash to it.
I could never hear the national anthem, and I live across the street. But everybody in Camp Hill could hear everything.
Well,
It was natural acoustics, the way it worked.
And
But then this new direction to us changed everything, because he was kind of a DJ, playing music in between,
yes.
very loud announcements. You could, and remember, we've had no spring, so March has continued, and you don't have your windows, doors open, and you could hear everything. It's clear as a bell.
We've addressed that. We don't want that to happen anymore, and we apologize for that. We didn't know it would carry that much. Now, we have 3 speakers on the Roundhouse that point to each field just for the national anthem, but we don't do announcements after that. It's basically just that on opening day and then closing day.
And this was the high school. It's not the Little League.
Right.
Like, you can never hear the Little League. You hear a bat and a ball and people clapping, but it comes from the high school.
Right, this is the first year that they actually started doing announcements.
Well, I have to say it's not, because Mrs. Hegman, who's moved away, and her mom was still alive, when they were playing some music, that this woman was so upset she rang her neighbors, like, what do I do? So it's not just a recent thing.
Okay.
All right, I think moving forward, I think it's been a good process. I think everybody's done it the right way. This is a great way to everybody get together. I've seen this happen before with other situations where we all get in a room and come to a resolution. Let's see how it works.
What can we do to change things, like the traffic flow, for example? Like you were saying, it's all about the kids. Well, most of us are here because either we have small children or we have grandchildren, and it's our homes,
Well,
and,
we're starting to address that, first of all, with Google.
but if it's not a DOT, then tickets can't be written. It's not a DOT.
No, that's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
We have to establish local laws in order to write tickets, and I don't think one was ever established. You can put all the signs up you want, they're not enforceable. Okay, we'll follow up on that. And again, I'm not big on writing tickets. I think it's more education. If the Little League puts a packet together in the spring of the year, and maybe we have to write a ticket or 2, and then the message gets sent. But to send a police officer down there at $3 an hour, just to say, there, I showed you,
Right.
I think is counterproductive, personally. So we'll work on that.
I will make sure that the board does a letter that goes out with that.
I also think the school needs to be involved. There needs to be standards that should take place when they're having their games there. It's not if the Little League people did tell them what they have to do.
Well, I don't think it was our place to tell them what to do
No,
either.
they should be brought in on what the problem is, and maybe they'll understand more.
That's exactly the point I was trying to make with some of this, is the school hasn't even been notified, and I don't think it's necessarily, and I don't mind doing that. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting with the superintendent tomorrow, and I'll have a conversation with him. But the public that came here, they have a concern. From a village standpoint, we can do a certain amount of it. I just want to reiterate that none of the fields are in the village of Chatham. So when it comes to stipulations and enforcements, we have to go by what was adhered to in '92. That doesn't mean you folks are village residents, you're impacted by it. We need to take care of your concerns forward, and I will do that. I'll commit to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be talking to the superintendent about something else tomorrow, but I will address that tomorrow.
I may have, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I may have missed this as I was popping in, but I heard that you were in the original plan listing that there was the possibility of having a local traffic only sign for Payne Avenue. Is that?
That was one of the suggestions in 1994, and that's we can take a look at that.
I'm just wondering, because I understand, I think I have 2 young kids and live on the block, and I think it's very easy for parents, et cetera, to just say, hey, I just got to get there quickly, and just say, oh, it's fine.
Or to the price chopper, or miss the
Well,
light.
and again, I will take that under
Okay,
consideration, because
great.
I'll invite you to my house at 7:30 tomorrow morning, Shore Road. And when the school, that never did, up until this year, park on my street, because they don't want to go down into the school. They line the street, and they wait for the kids to come out. My street is,
Right,
I understand.
right. So I'm
We
hopeful
understand.
that additional signage might.
Let's take a look at it.
Okay.
There's 2 sides to that, and I don't want to belabor this, but there's such a thing as sign pollution. I
Yes.
worked in the industry as a section supervisor in New York State Thruway for 35 years, and worked with federal DOT specs and stuff on signs. That, you just don't put a sign.
Okay.
And if you're not going to enforce it, there's no reason to put it up.
Well, I
And
can
how do
pull
you
up my
enforce
lawn
it?
chair and.
But they're all things we can take a look at, and we'll go back and revisit some of that. I'll talk to Phil Genovese, our superintendent of highways, and we'll talk to the chief of police, and there may be a chance of putting something,
I just have one additional question. You mentioned earlier that speed bumps are not really something that's enough. I'm just curious why in general.
in northern areas of the country, because you have to plow snow.
Okay.
And, down south, you'll see them a lot,
Yeah.
maybe in a mobile home park or something.
Yeah.
But when you have weather that we have,
Yeah.
it's causes damage to the vehicles
I
and the
see.
plows and stuff. So we've had other people come here before on the streets and said, we just put speed bumps down. Yeah, that solves your problem today, but it causes bigger problems, so that's one of the reasons.
Is there any problem or any rules against if the young children are out riding their bikes or playing, can we put a safety cone in the street just to alert people to slow down?
Yeah, I wouldn't put anything in the street because you're creating a hazard and you'll be liable for that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, you can put it in the street, I'm just saying, I wouldn't put anything in the street that causes an accident. And in the world we live in today, we can't put anything in the street.
What about a sign that says, just like back in the 40s and 50s, children at play?
Yeah, yeah. If it works, we just took 2 signs down today, they've been on for 30 years of the deaf, blind child area or something, but nobody looked at those, but anyhow, no, let's take a look at it.
Can't hurt.
No, it can't.
I have just one question.
Sure.
And this goes back to who's responsible, whether you have to go to the school to speak to them about their usage, or is it the Little League board, who governs that area? Under whose jurisdiction is the field?
The Little League jurisdiction.
It's under us.
So,
And we allow the high school to come up and play. Because their field they let the modified play there, but their field needs a lot of repair to bring it up to the specs. Ours is up to specs because we keep it that way. In terms of taxpayer dollars, if they had to bring it up, it could be up to 10 grand for them to get it up to specs for them to play, where they come up there and play.
Well, my observation is just that it's just who would be responsible in making sure that whoever uses that field uses it appropriately.
That comes to us as a Little League board.
And I don't want to be nitpicky, but it's one of these things like, first we didn't even know what the paperwork was, and I thought I needed to go again, and John did more research and found the information. But it was specifically for the Little League, which I find interesting, like, why wasn't there anything brought to the board when the high school went in? Like, it was just, okay.
It was brought to the Little League board because it's our fields.
But that's not what the agreement is about. It's about Little League.
I have a question.
Hold on, Matt, hold on.
I was just, I mean, that's how I interpret it.
Okay, and you're right, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but, through the public hearing back in 1992, some of those questions were asked. And it was agreed upon that it would be 4 fields, one of which would be 3 Little League fields and a senior field, and would be open for all recreational activity. Didn't say this one could play or that one could play. But when it came to the actual stipulations, and I read those all, there was nothing stipulated that are in here from the ZBA point of view, nor from the planning board. And it still amazes me that, again, planning board turned it over to village, but maybe back then, I guess it makes some sense. You sat on the planning board for years, Dan.
Yeah, by law, if there's 2 agencies, one's got to take a lead
You know,
agency.
so it happened, and here we are today.
We took Price Chopper, if that's any consolation.
That's another discussion.
We got the better end of that deal.
But I know, Dan, you're involved in it, and you're intimately involved in this also.
Yeah, and I appreciate the reasonable approach. I think if all the parties just agree to try and be good neighbors, probably most of these problems go away.
And you've been in the business a long time.
And I think in the original agreement, people really did work together as a community to think about planting the trees for the berm against the eagles. They talked about the signs. I mean, I think everyone wanted it to work. And some things have just kind of gone a little bit amok. And I just think as all of us as a community, we just have to rein it all in and work together, and that's the way I can see it happening the best.
And I think that's happening right here, right now.
Yeah,
really
I
do.
have to agree with that, and I've got to thank you guys because of the work that you do for the community, and just us being able to come here and speak to you about it and get things taken care of. Thank you so much.
Hey, here, let me tell you something. Pickleball. I had 70 people at the meeting for pickleball versus tennis. It's humorous. I know we're on tape, but I can have a $700,000 water main project in Crickets, and I appreciate you folks when you come here. I appreciate your input. I appreciate the fact that we can all do it civilly. Where I go to some other board meetings, and it is outrageous that, the world we live in today, it's crazy. But to be able to sit down, we might not all agree when we get done here. I'll make some commitments, and I'll talk to the superintendent, we'll look at signage, I'll talk to the chief, and maybe we can get some of that done, and maybe we won't get it all done. But let's all head in the same direction.
And how would we know if you guys didn't tell us? I didn't know you were having a problem up there. I don't hear it on Church Street, so
Right.
you would have to let us know because we can't really do anything.
And Lenore, you've been in the business a long time. God bless you. A petition is very helpful because power and numbers, I totally get that. And they don't always work. And I want to thank Bill Hogenkamp from the Little League being here also. I did talk to Kyle, the president, and they had conversations. So this is how we get these things resolved. And, it may not be resolved to everybody's minute expectation, but I think it's already made a difference. And I thank you for that. Is there anything else in regards to this? Will, I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if the Little League board has meetings that the public could go to bring concerns to.
Yes, they're open. We do have board meetings. It's the first Wednesday of every month.
So it seems like that would be a way that the public could keep up with this issue as it gets resolved.
Sure. Good point. All right, anything else? Because we're going to go on with our normal business, and you folks are more than welcome. I have a secret level 1 form here. Dan.
We're gonna stay for, we wanna see what happens with that vote.
I was almost out.
It was your chance, Dan.
Sorry.
You're in charge of the last stage. Cheers.
We're taking this one.
Another avenue.
Hey, just 112 years old. I'm close. All right, we're going to start with the first public comment period. So if there's anybody that'd like to comment? Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
wasn't planning to comment, I just want to be here for the vote, but I'll make a comment. I think you're all voting later on the rail trail section here in the village. And I'm Catherine Garofaldi, I'm on the board of the Harlem Valley Rail Trail for the past couple of years. And we're super excited about, it's 26 miles down to the south, and we're now focusing on this section from the village down to Hamlet of Ghent and then on to Philmont. So we've got a bunch of different grants in place and planning is happening, and we're all very anxious to get things moving. So there's an opportunity here in the village while we're finalizing plans and getting approval from the state, which can take a while, for this section here in the village. So I think you're voting on that tonight, and I encourage you to support the development. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think we're in a good spot. Been in touch with Lisa, we're just tightening some things up here. But yeah, it's on the agenda to move forward. I know they've got a contract. They haven't awarded it yet, I don't think, but they've got a couple bids and they've got a good flavor for where they're going. We're going to deal with this sooner rather than later.
Thank you for your support.
Could I ask a question? I'm going to put on my fairgrounds hat, right? So, not to get confused with other hats. Where will the trailheads or parking for access to this portion of the trail be at?
That's a great question that I wish I could answer, but
They
maybe it's
have
here
to
on
establish one, because
My concern is fairgrounds use.
being
they
in a
made it-
default spot.
There's a few ideas.
They made a proposal, and we know that, to pave an area on the fairgrounds, but it would have reduced the parking in that area by half. They were going to put screening in and stuff, and the fair didn't feel they wanted to do that. And I think I can speak a little bit in Eric, I'm going to take the words out of your mouth. People are going to park on a roadway,
Right.
and that's
Which,
not.
right, it is what it is, and the fair board would never oppose that, as long as other things aren't going on. So I was just curious if there was any insight or planning as far as what they were going to do.
I haven't talked with the developer, I can't call him developer, Mark,
The designer.
the designer. They're looking at around the Price Chopper area to do something. That segment from the fairgrounds south hasn't been defined yet. There's still some hurdles, correct me if I'm wrong. But there's some areas in there that they were talking about utilizing. And originally the green shanty on this end, that's no longer available. The CSX won't release it. So the rail trail basically ends at the traffic light, and then it's going to be shared road from there, where we were hoping it would come all the way up to the green shanty on a separate path. It's not going to. So you're basically going from the traffic light to the fairgrounds entrance on this particular bid. Followed shortly by the next segment, if things come into place. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct, yes.
Wait, it takes a long time to make a rail trail.
It does. It's a lot of, there's a lot of land. A lot of it is owned by New York State Parks, but not all of it is owned by New York State Parks. So between getting the money and getting the design and all the crossings for the Department of Transportation and all those pieces are it's very complicated. I was surprised as well.
So put that on top of your head, your list of concerns is, the trailhead in that Price Chopper, Darters Drive area.
Right.
Because they're going to, as they do now, people walk on the fairgrounds, and it's a great place. It's like Central Park.
Yeah.
And they park along the roadway, and that's fine, as Eric says, but then.
It's just that during the year, there are random times where we permanently close off the entrance for private events, so that parking wouldn't be available then.
Right. And where would people go instead?
They had a great idea. Unfortunately, it limited the parking for the fair by 50% for that area, so it didn't work. So.
The counter idea is just blacktop a parking lot and let us use it during the fair.
There you are. And I can still talk to Lisa and Mark about that. That area they're looking at, just blacktop it, use it, forget the screening and all the.
We were willing to work out with Rail Trail to give up or lease, if you will, a parking area, but the proposal that they submitted was drastically reduced our parking area.
All right, anything else? Anybody else from the public? Hearing none, we'll start with the building, Park, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm from the church.
Okay.
Church, and we had submitted some paperwork for July 26th to have the paint High Street blocked off. We wanted to have a community day.
That's on our agenda.
Okay.
There's a resolution that we want to hang in there, we'll get to it, okay? So we'll start with department reports, the building report. Erin couldn't be here tonight because her daughter's running in states for the school. She's done very well, she's quite a star. You guys ready to have a building report?
Sam
does.
For May 2025, 7 permits issued, 3 new complaints received, 1 on agenda at the Board of Trustees meeting, 1 CO search, 4 certificate of occupancy completed, issued, 4 permit inspections completed, 2 complaint inspections completed, $2,715 payments received, and reports are attached.
Okay, heard that before. Police report, Chief Gillespie.
Met with the high school principal about the graduation parade. No changes, it'll be immediately following the graduation as it has in the past. It'll go down Woodbridge, Kendrick Street to the Circle, to Main Street, and then all the way down Hudson Ave to the Fairgrounds entrance on 66. My numbers are attached. The new patrol car is down and actively being worked on. The drop-off zone on Woodbridge Ave, I believe the signs were installed, Phil told me. I reached out to the school to get a letter, get some stuff to get out to parents for the last couple weeks of school, just to see how it goes. And Chatham PD assisted with the emergency shelter that was set up at the firehouse due to the fire in Stockport. All numbers are attached.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Hearing none. Chief Barnes, Fire Department.
My report was submitted, all the numbers are there. Couple of highlights, and then I'll just add on some things that I didn't get into the report. We continue to be busy at the fire department, busier, a lot busier than normal, enough for me to mention it. It's been a conversation we've been having at our officers' meetings. I mentioned it last month, but we continue to run at about 130% over our 10-year average. We had another month of 17 calls. A couple of key points. We saw an uptick in accidents in the jurisdiction that we cover in the town of Kinderhook. Every once in a while we go through this, but we've had 3 semi-serious accidents on 203 between 21 and Merlin Road. The last couple of years, those numbers had come down, so I'm not sure what the uptake is there, but we'll pay attention to that and talk with the town if we have to. And then we had that crazy rainstorm go through last Saturday. I think Phil said somewhere around 5.5 inches of rain in like a 12-hour period, which caused some emergencies in town, flooding, pain, some basement pump outs. Quickly, apparatus stuff, as you see in the report, the chiefs, the new group of chiefs and officers have really been hammering away the last 6 weeks. It's caused a great increase in a draw on our budget. What we're discovering and trying to take care of some stuff that is long overdue, is required to be done, hadn't gotten done. So some of those bills went on the previous year's budget, some are being pushed to this year because we ran out of money. So we're trying to catch up with that. All the trucks will be inspected in the next 2 weeks, will be serviced in the next month, and then one of the main engines is getting sent to Garrison's over outside of Catskill to be pump tested and serviced, which needs to be done. So the apparatus trucks are getting brought up to speed. I'm hoping, I think by August or September, I'll be able to come back to the board. I'm hoping with like a full 6-month review. I'll put it in writing, I'll give it to you, kind of where we were and where we are, so that everybody knows. But, I mean, these trucks are $1 million trucks, so, you know, it's important to put 2,000-3,000 in them every 4 or 5 months to keep them, you know, where they should be. Let's see, I don't need to cover all this. Ladder testing, hose testing, that's another big thing. That's a huge liability in the fire service. We're required to do it every year. We have a program in place to do it. It had not been done in 2024, so we caught up to it. I can report tonight that all of our ground ladders, which there's a lot, so there's several hundred feet of ground ladders, and all of our hose have been tested and certified. Last Wednesday, the hose company was here for 8.5 hours. Hose tested over 10,000 feet of hose in one day. In 10,000 feet, we lost 4 lengths of hose. We're not going to repurchase it. We have enough in stock, but we did lose 4 lengths of hose from burns, from cuts, things like that. And that's why it's important to do it. It costs $2,000, but if we can find a damaged hose before we get to a fire scene and it bursts and somebody gets hurt, it's cheap insurance, so that's why we do it. And then now added stuff that I hadn't covered. Again, last Wednesday, we got a last-minute phone call for a shelter at the firehouse. The funny story there is that's exactly 1 week after Red Cross was here to do an audit on our firehouse and kindly told us that they weren't sure that we were going to continue to be a shelter because the firehouse isn't ADA compliant. Exactly a week later, they called in the heat of the moment at 7 o'clock at night and asked if they could use it because there are no other Red Cross shelters in central or northern Columbia County. We are the only one. So they opened it up. It was open for 18 hours. No big deal. It ran fine. We worked with emergency management and the police department, and it was fine. So it did get used. But it is a concern, that building being ADA compliant. Saturday, I'll start with Friday. We did a quick impromptu send-off for the school varsity softball team, which we have historically created an animal doing now. We're lucky and fortunate in this area, right? We have very good sports teams that continue to make our community shine, and I think it's important that we highlight those things. And it's not just us. There was like 7 fire departments there, I think, from the whole northern Columbia County that came down and helped with the police department. Then with regionals and 1, which means this Thursday we will be doing another one to send them to Binghamton. Saturday morning, let me start with this. So then, 3 quick small things that wasn't in there was, like I said, 5851, which had been in the shop, previously reported we had some issues with brakes and springs. It took us 3 weeks to figure that out and get it back to service. Today it went to Simmons Automotive for a heavy truck inspection. It has been given a 100% clean bill of health, so the ladder truck's back in service 100%. We're good to go. Cross our fingers, nothing else happens. Wednesday night, National Grid's coming to town and doing a live wire power line training class where they simulate live wires down and fire wires over vehicles. The village DPW and all the town DPWs will be there, and then Wednesday night all the local fire departments will be there. That'll be at the fairgrounds. That's a neat drill. I thought that was nice of National Grid to come to town and do that for everybody. And then the last thing I'll talk about, and then I'll shut up, is Saturday morning at 7:53 in the morning, 911 call for a house fire on Church Street, so 77 Church Street, passerby reported smoke coming from the porch. A second passerby who happens to be a volunteer fireman stopped. They called 911, went to the house, banged on the door. The residents were in the house, sleeping still, had no idea their house was on fire. No working smoke detectors. They got the residents out. There was 2 cats inside. They were able to rescue one. Here's the neat part, and this is where I'm gonna, pat myself or the department, the firemen, the volunteers that we have on our backs a little bit here, is there's a 911 call placed in 4 minutes and 40 seconds, right? Think about that, 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Most of us probably can't walk out to our car in that time. The alarm, call goes to 911, the alarm is dispatched, and in 4 minutes and 40 seconds, we have a chief, a ladder truck, and 4 go-getters on scene. And in less than 5 minutes, there was a hose line stretched to the house, in the house, found the fire, and put the fire out at 7:53 in the morning. And so I want to give, public props to all these volunteers. Get up out of bed, race to the station, kept this fire to a 10 by 10 room in a house that's almost 100 years old. It's amazing work. These guys do it all the time. But it's important for the board to know and the public to know that this is all volunteer, and this is what these guys do. So it was a good save. The homeowner, I talked to the owner of the building who lives in Connecticut, and the apartment residents, there's 3 apartments. They all couldn't be more thankful. They've called several times. So that's just a little gist on the fire from Saturday. That's all I have.
No working smoke detectors?
It's a lot. To go along with that, Aaron was also summoned to the scene as building inspector, and there's a follow-up done on that. I just want to add something that was a letter that was just received. I just got it from the Chatham Fire Department Rescue Squad.
Yeah, I didn't bring that up.
Assistance on trauma call, May 18th, Village of Chatham. This just came out. Dear Chatham Fire Department, on behalf of the Chatham Rescue Squad, we'd like to extend our deepest gratitude for your valuable assistance during an emergency call on May 18th, 2025, involving a female patient with significant injuries. Our crew has stated that the level of care and prompt response they were able to provide would not have been possible without your support. Your professionalism, teamwork, dedication made a critical difference in the outcome of this call, and for what we are truly grateful. And Chief Alessi was part of that also. So that's just another kudos to volunteers, unpaid professionals. So thank you for that. DPW report, I don't think we have one, do we, Desiree?
We do not.
Phil's been up against it with the rain. They're playing catch up with the mowing and what have you. I know they are participating in annual OSHA training the next 2 days. They're on the fairgrounds. All villages, towns are tomorrow, and the county DPW is on Wednesday. There's a number of stations that they have to go through. They're there for the whole day. Further into our agenda, there's a couple resolutions regarding some employees that we'll talk about. But unless Karen or Ralph have anything to add to that, I'll ask for approve the minutes of the May 12th, 2025 regular meeting. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I need a motion to approve the budget actions May 2025. Can I get a motion? Motion. A second.
Second.
All in favor? Under new business, resolution 93, that's to enact a local law prohibiting parking at 33 Thomas Street. We're going to table that. Hope more information to follow. Resolution 94, to waive the open container restrictions for Summerfest, July 12, 2025, between the hours of 10 and 5 on Main Street, from the circle of the gazebo, Park Road from the gazebo to Kendrick Street, Depot Square parking lot, the gazebo on Hudson Avenue to railroad tracks to 33 Ave. Hudson Avenue from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Main Street parking lot from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. was previously tabled to verify hours. I did go, let me have a motion.
Motion.
And a second. I did go talk to Tom Crowell from the brewery. They don't have a separate permit. They work under a regular permit, so there's no more restrictions on hours, so that's not an issue. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
95, to approve the schedule of encumbrances transfers for review during Board of Trustees meeting. That's submitted by the village clerk dated June 4th. Okay, get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
Everybody received those. All in favor?
Aye.
96, to approve a schedule of budget amendments for the use of unappropriated unassigned water funds for the review of the Board of Trustees on tonight's 6/9/25 submitted by the village treasurer. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next one, 96, is a resolution of the Village of Chatham Board of Trustees declaring intent to serve as the lead agency pursuant to the New York State Environmental Review Regulations for the Village of Chatham new well source development to address PFAS contamination and inadequate source capacity. Let me read it. Bear with me. Whereas the village's secondary drinking source at the Shore Road well field after water quality sampling in 2024 was deemed unsuitable for typical rehabilitation due to the presence of PER and PFAS, and whereas the village working with engineers has determined the most cost-effective and preferred solutions to develop a new well field and replacing that portion of the water transmission, and whereas the village intends to implement the well development and transmission replacement project by pursuing and utilizing a combination of grants and loan funding sources, including the Environmental Facilities Corporation's Water Infrastructure Improvement Act program, and whereas it is further intent of the village to comply with applicable environmental review requirements for the project through careful consideration of the relationship among component activities and evaluate their cumulative environmental effects, and whereas to comply with EFC regulations of the project under New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, (SEQRA), has been determined to be classified as a Type 1 action requiring a coordinated review, and whereas the village board declares its intent to serve as lead agency to conduct the environmental review of the project in accordance with SEQRA. Now therefore be it resolved, pursuant to the applicant's standards of SEQRA, the village board of trustees hereby declares its intentions to act as lead agency to review the project under SEQRA, and the village mayor and his designee is authorized to send or designate and delegate and sending a full environmental assessment form and other relevant information to all involved interested agencies indicating the Village of Chatham Board of Trustees intentions to serve as lead agency and to coordinate a review under SEQRA, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. I need a motion.
Motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Are there any questions? And let me just give you some oversight so as not to have information out there. PFAS is a crazy thing. We all know what happened to Shore Road. We haven't used that in 40 years. We were looking at a redundant water site. That was the first site we went to look. We found out there's PFOAs there after testing it. So we decided not to touch that, move on. We're looking at a well field adjacent to our current well field, which is in the town of Ghent, across from the Clonkill Airport. Just 13 acres or so that we own there. They put a program together. We're looking at funding. Quite frankly, I'm not sure this is going to get to this point, but because this is time sensitive, these grants have to be submitted, like this has to be turned in tomorrow. We're moving it. We haven't committed to the project. Simply, we're just applying for, going through the process. We're looking at $8.9 million on a project that started out about $4 million. That was a 30% contingency where it used to be 10, 15%, because the world we live in, the cost of things are out of sight. After our last Zoom meeting a week ago, Labella's person that helps in bonding said you have to add another $500,000 on the 30% contingency already for overruns. I was like, well, why do we have a 30% contingency? We're adding another $500,000 on. So from 8.4 to $8.9 million. We believe that number is going to come down considerably when we go back to the well. Having said all that, the funding that we were looking for, the EFC funding, can be up to $5 million. Labella feels that we're in a very good position because of the PFOAs. That gets you to the top of the list. We shall see. But we can't get to that point until we go through all of this. And our bonding counsel, Chris Shale, who's a rock star, has been working. Ken's dealt with Chris. Chris was on the Zoom, and Chris had them on her heels. I'll tell you what, wow, she knows her stuff. So she's doing a workup on this. She made some suggestions on some of this stuff. We're going to have to go through a long form here in a few minutes. It'll take 15 minutes. Any questions Mel?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Okay?
Change mine to yes.
Sorry.
All right, buddy. Resolution 97, to rescind the previously approved Resolution 86 of 2025, authorizing the mayor and the chief of police to sign an agreement for town security services by and between the village of Chatham, town of Chatham, and the Chatham Synagogue. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
We had voted on providing that at last month's meeting. After further review, Pete reached out to NICOM, we talked to their council, long story short, we did. We found out that we can't legally enter into a contract with a private entity. We will maintain our contract with the town as we have, and if there's anything that we're going to provide, it'll go through the town, and Chief Alessi will work with the synagogue if they need something, but the synagogue will be working with the town, not the village. So we're going to rescind that, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
98, to approve the 519-25 permit application use of the gazebo submitted by Columbia Green Addiction Coalition Queer Trans Connections, requesting permission to use the gazebo on 6/26 from 3 to 10 p.m. for Pride Awareness and Celebration. The municipal request form, certificate of liability has been provided. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second. Desiree has spent a lot of time on this to get to this point, but any other discussion? They've provided everything we require. All in favor?
Aye.
99, to authorize the mayor to sign an indemnification agreement, hold harmless by and between the village and Columbia Green Coalition Connections for the Pride Awareness Celebration event request to be held on Thursday, the 26th. Can I get a motion? And a second.
So that's a Thursday at 10 p.m., up to 10 p.m.?
That's correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 100, approve the 521-25 permit application use of municipal facilities, High Street, submitted by Payne A.V. Church requesting permission to use High Street on 7/26 from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. for community day outreach. And again, they've filled out the forms, certificate of insurance, and then again, we'll do a whole harmless agreement. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
There were some questions about parking, and we were told they were going to do the same thing they do in their Sunday services. It's help yourself. Would you like to comment on any of that?
I just wanted to know about where are you going to block off the street? Are you going to block it off like at the bottom? I thought Chief Alessi had said at the bottom of the hill, and then what are on the other end there?
Yep. So there'll be a hard barrier basically where your church is, so that no one will be able to get past that point. And then the street closed signs will be put up at basically where they still don't have to make a U-turn. But we still want to allow as many residents as possible to get to their house without, so basically the property in front of the church, we'll have solid barriers there, so no one will be able to go past that point, but at Line Street and at the bottom of the hill, there'll be street closed signs.
Will they answer your question?
Will they be banned?
Yes.
Okay.
Will you be able to let the people on that area of High Street know, like maybe put a note on the door, or just to be prepared for that?
Yeah, I think, we'll do something.
Okay, that would just be helpful, just to know something's going on. Maybe they would know to go the other way around to get home or whatever.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Resolution 101, to authorize the mayor to sign an identification hold harmless by and between the village of Chatham and Payne A.V. Church for the community day outreach on Saturday, July 26th. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second. All in favor? Aye. Resolution 102, to approve the DPW hiring of Jim Dorado for a part-time skilled labor position at a rate of $21.22 an hour effective June 10th, 2025. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
Jim currently works for the school, and he works for Chatham PD part-time. He's looking for some additional part-time work. I think he's leaving his position at the school. And Phil's got some space. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Resolution 103, to approve Alex Title for promotion from part-time to full-time skilled labor position at a rate of $21.22 an hour effective June 10th. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
A second.
Second.
All in favor? 104, to authorize the mayor to sign a 5-year interim municipal cooperation agreement between the Columbia County and villages of Chatham, Philmont, Relation, the towns of, everybody in Columbia County. From May 1st, 2025 through April 30th of 2030. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
It's something that we do on a regular basis. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 105 to approve the Harlem Valley Rail Trail plans dated March 2025 for construction of the Harlem Valley Rail Trail in the Village of Chatham. Can I get a motion? Motion. And a second.
Second.
There's been a number of field trips Phil has made. He's been dealing with Mark and Lisa and everybody involved, and we've made some adjustments on the trees, not as many trees, pared some of them down, but the plans are essentially what was presented to us. My understanding is they've gone to bid and they're ready to award this, and it could be, once they award it, it could take about 2 weeks. The project will be done.
You must have a website, right?
Yes,
That
they do.
people can go to?
They do.
Yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 106 to grant sewer relief in an amount of $89.76 for 49 Church Street, Louis Metzner, due to a water leak. They had a written request and calculations are attached. Can I get a motion? Motion. A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 107 to grant sewer relief in an amount of $702.42 for 19 High Street. Manuel and Joseph Barreto Pintaba due to a burst water pipe. And again, written requests and calculations are attached. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
Sam said it was the most clearest photo he's ever seen of a broken water pipe. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 108 to approve refunds of water and sewer overpayments made by the village water sewer system user due to a meter programming billing error. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second. This is what do I want to say? Help me out, Desiree. We found we got a problem with some of the cellular meters regarding the way they were calibrated. They have to be recalibrated. So the billing may have been off a little bit.
How they were calibrated at the factory.
Yeah, we didn't calibrate them. That's the way they were put in. And long story short, we haven't had anybody come to us yet. We've had a couple of questions as to why the bills are high. We just want to be able to say, instead of waiting 30 days or 60 days, if there's been an error, somebody pays their bill, they paid more than they should have, that we, the clerk in the treasurer's office, can reimburse them immediately rather than have them come back another 30 days or 60 days. So this kind of be a preemptive, if you will, resolution, and quite frankly, it may not even be needed, but we thought because there's an error pretty much on the factory's end, but we're the ones that have to take it on the chin. That's about. Anything to add to that?
I think there were 87 accounts that were upgraded to cellular. 35 of those were these a full replacement of a meter, and it's those 35 or 36 that are potentially affected by this.
And quite frankly, Phil, Desiree, Sam discovered this problem. The company said there's no way until Phil brought them in and showed them. And the engineer or he couldn't believe it. He's going, uh-oh, we got a problem. And he says to Phil, can I use your software? Because he says the one I got is not correct. And that's from the company. So long story short, again, we discovered it. We are having to correct it. And yeah.
This is just another great example of Phil.
No, it is. And I'll tell you, Desiree,
they're supporting you.
I mean, I can honestly tell you, this is no exaggeration, there was, between Desiree and Sam, 40 hours last week, nothing got done but this.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, it wasn't our problem.
Right.
So anyhow, thank you to them. Can I get them all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 109, to approve the proposal May 30th submitted by Thomas Simbarari of Lubellas for architectural and engineering search for public safety facility planning study in the amount of $67,200. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second. Discussion. Personally, I'd like to table this.
Yeah, I just think one is, see if we need more. Can we go a little longer and get more? That's really high. No, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Maybe more people would buy this. Yeah, it went up like a lot of money.
It's a complicated problem because of the number of sites, so I think we're going to see numbers in the 45 to 60. hopefully, but we can't expect it's gonna be lower than 40,000. I don't think, we're gonna keep this number of sites as part of the study. That's what's making the expense, because they have to study each site and determine traffic and how we're gonna set the building and how the building fits in there. So it's complicated by, if we could limit it to like one site, like pick a site and say, this is the one you're gonna study, then most of the hard work was done earlier in the studies, and we have to upgrade the study. We have to add in the police department piece of that and the safety. So there are ways to reduce the cost, but mostly it comes down to if we could figure out which sites are really viable and limit that number to 1-2 sites.
So I think, and again, it's up to the board if you want to table this, but I would suggest you put a motion to table it, and then Melanie and Ralph sit down with the chiefs again, and let's pump the brakes a little bit, and maybe touch up the ones that we already touched up and didn't hear from, but that's just my suggestion. So if I can get a motion to table that. Because, well, we got a motion and a second to approve it, so we're basically going to just amend that to table it. You good with that, Desiree?
I missed the who did what.
Do I need,
A motion?
do I need to amend my motion to table it?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
I'll amend my motion to table the proposal for the architectural engineering services.
And we got a second on that, right? So Pete is the second. All in favor? All right, a couple things for discussion. We've gone over a letter of concern from Payne Avenue. Columbia County Hudson Chatham bus loop begins tomorrow.
That's amazing.
I got a text from Supervisor Simmons at dinner time. He says, "You riding the bus tomorrow?" I said, "No, I'm not riding the bus tomorrow." So I hope that takes off. We've been to the High Point, Chatham Manor, put some flyers out. Actually, I think I had to pick flyers up. Not tell me that.
Yeah, at some point this week.
To hand out. We got some to the food pantry. I hope it's no cost right now. There's $200,000 there. If it doesn't take off, obviousobviously that stuff will go away, so let's keep our fingers crossed. I think it's great. And again, the Harlem Valley Rail Trail, they're going to have a meeting with CABA, and board members are invited to go to that Tuesday, June 17th at 9 a.m. at the Firehouse in Chatham. CABA has requested what's the economic boost or benefit, and the rail trail's going to be there to speak on that. And I'm going to have to get a motion to go to executive session at this point.
Motion.
John?
Yes.
Do the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
The EAF.
We have to go through the EAF first.
You
probably do.
Good night.
I mean, I don't know, if you kind of,
Thank you for
if you're going
coming.
to review it, you don't necessarily have to go through it. This is the part one.
Even though I don't really need to.
But the board, the board just needs to adopt this as your part one, which is the basis for doing it part 2 and 3 next week. And it was prepared by the engineer, so they had the information that was necessary to fill this thing out. If you just want to, if you had a chance to look at it, just verify that they were correct and stuff, or if you want to go through it to make sure that the information.
I don't think it's necessary. We got each one of you have one. We can go through it point by point. It was done by the engineers. I have gone through it. And I sat here quietly.
A lot of it's
correct.
Clearly correct. I mean, it's just such basic factual information. If there are any couple things in there, I mean, you might want to just,
Yeah.
have a chance to look at it, you're just basically saying, yes, this is correct, and this is the first part that we use next month. Then this is what's going to get sent out to the other interested or involved agencies.
Right.
So, if you're confident that the information is correct, and it should be.
Yeah, and again, I did this after I came in here this evening when it was quiet, and I went through this whole thing, and it's clearly in order as far as I can be concerned.
So you can just adopt it, make a motion to adopt it as, approve it as part 1 that you're going to use for the rest of the secret process, and then this is going to get sent out to the other involved agencies right away with the request to be lead agency.
All right, so we'll move it back up. Is that all part of the motion that we adopted? Well, let me do this. Let me get a motion to adopt the full environmental assessment form, part 1, for project consent. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
It's been reviewed and found to be in order. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
That's wow, that saved a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a motion to go into executive session for collective negotiations.
Motion.
And a second.
Second.